Hey guys, tonight we're heading deep into the star-drenched nights of ancient Mesoamerica, where the sky wasn't just a ceiling but a clock, a calendar, a god, and, somehow, a reason to skip sleep. You're walking barefoot now, over smooth, sun-warmed stones that are just starting to cool under the evening breeze. The horizon glows faint orange as the last of the day's sun dips away, and someone nearby, maybe an apprentice, is lighting copal incense that smells sweet and sharp, like pine mixed with campfire smoke. That you're standing in the sacred observatory of an Aztec city, watching a man who hasn't blinked in 40 minutes because he's squinting at Venus like it just insulted his family. This is your guide tonight. A Tlamatini, an Aztec knower of things. He studies the stars, keeps ritual time, and somehow functions on 3 hours of sleep, roasted maize, and extremely tense shoulder muscles. And the first thing you notice? His sleep schedule is bananas.so. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your astronomer, let's call him Tezcatlipoca, doesn't sleep the way you do. His night doesn't start when the sun goes down. It starts when Venus shows up, or disappears, or moves a little to the left. Depends who you ask. He doesn't go to bed when he's tired. He goes to bed when the gods say so, which is not the same thing. You follow him through a narrow stone passage that opens into a small circular courtyard. There's a mat rolled up on the ground, woven from dried reeds, and beside it, a gourd filled with thick tamarind water. This is his version of bedtime tea. It smells sour. He kneels slowly, with the posture of someone who's sat like this 10,000 times, and begins to hum under his breath. Not a lullaby, something older. It sounds like the wind through agave leaves. His eyes are half closed, not from sleep, but from focus. He's calculating the angle of starlight on his eyelids. You try to sit too, but your legs immediately fall asleep. It's fine. No one notices. Back in the day, these guys weren't just stargazers. They were also priests, mathematicians, and surprisingly disciplined insomniacs. Aztec astronomers were responsible for maintaining ritual calendars, advising political leaders on omens, and ensuring agricultural cycles stayed aligned with celestial movements. Sleep was something they planned, strategically. It wasn't rest. It was calibration. According to several accounts, senior astronomers would split their sleep into tightly controlled intervals, like 3 hours after sunset, 2 before sunrise, with short naps at noon depending on solar zeniths. Imagine telling your smartwatch, "Remind me to sleep when Jupiter passes the Turtle constellation." You'd get banned from your sleep tracking app. Historians still argue whether these precise rhythms were adhered to across the priesthood or just by elite calendar keepers. Some say only the high-ranking Tlamatini followed strict schedules, while others suggest whole astronomical guilds adopted sleep as a kind of team sport. You glance over at Tezcatlipoca. He's now rubbing a paste onto his arms made of crushed maize, chili, and some kind of oily resin. Supposedly, it awakens clarity before resting. You're not buying it, but he looks dead serious. Then again, you once ate a raw jalapeno at 11 p.m., so maybe you're not one to judge. There's an obsidian disc beside him, round, shiny, and roughly the size of a dinner plate. At first, you think it's for decoration. Turns out it's his portable star mirror. At night, under torchlight or moonlight, he can tilt it just so and track the reflection of celestial patterns as they pass overhead. It's clever, in a surprisingly low-tech way. You suspect it also works as a shave mirror. Multi-use tools, very efficient. Suddenly, he leans back, exhales, and says something like, "The sleep arrives," which would sound ridiculous from anyone else, but from him, it feels like prophecy. You lie back too. The mat's not awful. It's stiff, but evenly woven. You feel your spine realign against the ground, bones finding a rhythm in the earth's slow cooling. There's no pillow. Instead, a small bundle of owl feathers is tucked under the head. Supposedly, owls are messengers between worlds. Also, they hoot a lot. But this one is silent. Maybe enchanted. Maybe just molted. In the distance, a conch shell sounds, low and haunting. It's not for war. Not this time. It's a signal that the West has fallen into full darkness. which means your astronomer has, at most, 90 minutes to dream before the next celestial checkpoint. Someone has to note when the North Star reaches its proper vertical. And if you're wondering, yes, that's considered part of the night shift. You shift under the open sky. No roof, no ceiling, just a dome of pinprick stars, all breathing slowly above you. There's something about it that makes your own breath slow too, as if syncing with a rhythm older than lungs. Some say Aztec astronomers believe dreams could bring insight, visions, predictions, divine whispers. Others say the dreams were mostly byproducts of physical exhaustion and fermented cactus juice. Historians still argue whether dream recording was a real practice or something that evolved later in Spanish retellings of Nahua tradition. But one thing's certain, these weren't ordinary sleepers. They were watchers who knew when not to sleep. And that may be the strangest ritual of all, sleeping on purpose, but also waking with purpose. Tezcatlipoca's brow furrows slightly in his sleep. Maybe he's dreaming about stars, or maize, or that weird cloud that looked like a jaguar earlier. Or maybe, like you, he's just hoping no one wakes him up too soon. You wake to the sound of humming, not the sleepy kind, but the kind that suggests organized air traffic. Bees swirl overhead in steady arcs, forming hypnotic patterns against the pinkish sky. Apollo stands nearby, chest out, arms akimbo, face beaming. He's wearing a crown made entirely of honeycomb. It symbolizes my reign, he says, not even trying to swat away the bees crawling into his golden curls. A kingdom of nectar, a dynasty of pollen. You blink slowly. One bee lands delicately on your lip. You do not react. You've learned. Overnight, Apollo has gone full entrepreneurial. He's given the hive a name, Heliodrone. There's a logo now, an unnecessarily complex sunburst design scratched into bark with arrows and sparkles, and at least one lyre. He's drafted marketing slogans. His favorite so far? Taste the dawn. You ask if he's actually harvested any honey yet that he pauses. Well, not technically, but spiritually, yes. The truth is, Apollo still hasn't figured out the difference between nectar and honey. This morning, he collected a handful of sticky liquid from a daffodil and proclaimed it divine syrup. He tries to pour it into a clay amphora, but it just slides pathetically down the side. It's the texture of destiny, he whispers. The bees, increasingly unimpressed, buzz away to find flowers not currently being groped by a sun deity. Still, there's hope on the horizon, or so you think. When Apollo enlists help, he calls upon a few woodland nymphs to join his beekeeping collective. Their names are Chloris, Daphne, not that Daphne, and Brizoe, who claims she once taught a bear to respect bees. They arrive barefoot, smelling of crushed herbs, and all of them immediately outclass Apollo in every practical skill. Within minutes, Chloris has gently rebalanced the hive structure using only a reed and some twine. Daphne finds a water source for the bees. Brizoe, humming quietly, coaxes a whole swarm to calmness by just standing nearby. Apollo claps excitedly. We're a team. You quietly observe that the nymphs don't seem nearly as enthusiastic. To be fair, the woodland nymphs don't hate Apollo's presence, but they're clearly here for the bees. Apollo, meanwhile, is still mostly interested in naming things. He points to a particularly shiny bee. That one's Solaria. She's the chosen queen. I can tell by her vibe. You squint. That's a worker bee. Also, she seems visibly annoyed. Undeterred, Apollo begins to choreograph the bees. If we can get them to fly in formation, maybe in the shape of my lyre, it could double as a marketing campaign. Or, wait, what if I compose a symphony for the bees? Something minimalist. Buzzcore. This is followed by a 3-hour jam session during which he alternates between lyre and panpipes while the bees do their best to pretend he doesn't exist. A highlight. Apollo invents a new genre he calls hymncomb. You hear it described as acoustic droning with layers of solar vibration. It sounds like someone dropped a harp into a blender full of basil. The nymphs are patient. But Brizoe eventually stages a gentle intervention. She explains, very diplomatically, that bees aren't inspired by human music, that their rhythm is nature, that they need consistency, shade, and gentle weather, not divine crescendos and weekly rebranding. Apollo nods solemnly. Then immediately scrawls consistency is the new cool on a fig leaf and tapes it to the hive. Somewhere, a cicada sighs, But even through the overconfidence and musical chaos, you start to notice something new. Apollo's optimism is contagious. He's like a golden retriever with god powers, completely unqualified, slightly dangerous, but somehow making everyone laugh. Even the bees seem less agitated today. Chloris claims they're producing more wax. Brizoe starts talking about a second hive, and Apollo, sweet, glowing Apollo, tries to taste his first spoonful of actual honey. He dips in too quickly and knocks over the collection bowl. Honey glops all over his feet. He slips and lands in a flower bed. 3 bees land directly on his nose. I am part of the hive, he whispers, eyes wide. We are one. You step around him carefully. He smells like a dessert. As the sun tilts lazily overhead, you and Apollo sit beside the hive, drowsy from heat and the sticky sweetness in the air. He points upward. Did you know the Greeks believed bees were messengers between worlds? Between the mortal and the divine? You nod. That part is historically accurate. In ancient Greek thought, bees symbolized purity and the soul. Priestesses of Demeter and Artemis were sometimes called Melissae, bee women. In certain oracles, bees were even believed to carry divine messages. Buzz translations from the beyond. But then Apollo adds, so I figure, if I train them right, they can deliver notes to the underworld. Maybe love letters. Or passive-aggressive memos to Hades. You stare. He smiles. And maybe, just maybe, a recipe. He pulls out a papyrus scroll labeled Golden Honey Cake, beta version. The ingredients include sunbeam zest, ambrosia dust, and whatever Brizoe was humming about yesterday. You don't have the heart to correct him. By late afternoon, the nymphs have gone. The bees are tucked in. Apollo is lying on his back, humming to the sky, arms spread in sticky triumph. The honey crown has wilted. He doesn't care. I'm going to bottle this feeling, he murmurs. Sell it to the stars. You close your eyes. The hum fades. For now, everything is sweet. You're still lying flat on a woven reed mat, head balanced precariously on an owl feather bundle, and a breeze rolls over your cheeks like soft-spoken thunder. But Tezcatlipoca is already up again, because of course he is. The sun hasn't even shown its full face yet, and he's brushing ash into a wooden tray. You watch from the corner of your eye as he mixes the ash with ground seeds and something that smells like dried flowers and burnt cinnamon. This is breakfast, sort of. Technically, it's a pre-dawn offering, a ritual blend to awaken clarity and strengthen the mind. Not quite bacon and eggs, but the Aztec astronomers weren't about comfort food. They were about preparation. Sleep, diet, and meditation were all linked in their practice, each feeding into the next. Dream too heavily, and your mind might wander. Eat too richly, and your dreams might carry you to the wrong god. You sit up as quietly as possible. Your spine feels like it's been folded into an ancient codex overnight. Nearby, a younger apprentice is scribbling on bark paper with blackened fingers. Not writing exactly, more like recording sky notes. Quick symbols, angles, dots and bars. He glances at you, nods solemnly, and returns to his markings. Apparently, you've passed the test by surviving your first night, which, frankly, you weren't sure about either. The distant horn sounds. Deep, mournful, not a warning, just a signal that one of the 20-day names in the Tanalpwali, the sacred calendar, has arrived. Today is Tecpatl, the flint knife, a day associated with sacrifice, clarity, and sleeplessness. Of course, and Tezcatlipoca, he hasn't rested more than a few hours. You wonder if he ever does. He holds a long obsidian blade, decorative, not sharp, toward the rising light. It catches the glow and flares briefly before he lowers it, eyes closed, lips moving in quiet prayer. This isn't drama. It's duty. One of the sacred responsibilities of the Tlamatini was to greet the dawn with intentional awareness. You didn't just see the sunrise. You interpreted it. You read it. Then you annotated it like a nervous undergrad cramming for finals. Today's sunrise is soft gold, streaked with violet clouds that look painted on. You know this is the kind of sky they marked in codices. Not just because it's beautiful, but because its color and shape were considered omens. Some accounts say astronomers categorized dawn colors into a whole taxonomy. Pale red, sacred purple, cloud split yellow, weeping sky gray. Each hue held implications for harvest, health, even interpersonal conflict. Historians still argue whether these color omens were standardized across Mesoamerica or adapted locally, based on temple tradition. And as you watch, the morning unfolds not with speed, but precision. Tezcatlipoca's apprentice lays out a rectangular grid of pebbles, spacing them with uncanny exactness. You realize it's a visual aid, a star chart adapted for sunlight. Shadows fall across the grid in angles only a trained mind could decode. But he sees it instantly. A quick glance, then a nod. Then he erases the grid. Nothing is left behind but disturbed dust. You rub your eyes. You're tired. Deep, uncomfortable tired. But the others? They seem almost energized by this morning light. You wonder if it's habit or something else. You vaguely recall a fringe theory you read once. Some scholars believe the Tlamatanime condition their bodies to cycle brainwaves differently, functioning in alpha and theta states while semi-awake. Basically, lucid dreaming on command. And it makes sense, in a weird way. If your whole job is to straddle the visible and invisible worlds, then why not train yourself to be alert while semi-conscious? It's like professional daydreaming. With math, there's even a rumor, don't quote anyone on this, that high-ranking star priests could borrow rest from the solar cycle. That is, if they watch the sunrise with full awareness, they could store energy from the event, allowing them to skip sleep later. Which, yeah, sounds fake, but Tezcatlipoca doesn't look tired. He looks like someone who's just stepped out of a dream and into its real-world version. The same symbols, the same angles, just rearranged with daylight. After the formal greeting, the group gathers near a stepped platform, small, more like an altar than a pyramid. One by one, they pour water over their hands and faces from clay jugs, using the cool stream not to wake up, but to clear residual dream matter. To wash away night spirits, Tezcatlipoca murmurs. You try it too. The water is shockingly cold. You don't feel cleaner, but your pulse jumps to as you dry your hands. You notice a worn piece of cloth hung at the altar's edge. On it are stitched symbols, repeating spirals, stars, flame shapes. The cloth, you're told, is a dream map. Not of one dream, but of many, layered by generations of sky watchers. A tapestry of nocturnal visions stitched into the waking world. You ask if it's ever updated. The apprentice smiles faintly. Only by sleepwalkers. He's joking. Probably. The next part of the morning ritual involves silence. Not the awkward kind. The purposeful kind. Each person faces a different cardinal direction, and for one full hour, they don't speak. They watch. Listen. Breathe. The idea is that the gods speak clearest just after sunrise, when mortal chatter hasn't drowned them out. You sit facing east, into the warmth. And something weird happens. Your eyelids drift. You're not trying to sleep, but you're not awake, either. You're in that liminal space, half aware, half drifting. And somehow, it's deeply restful. More than the full night on that woven mat. Historians still debate whether this directional meditation was universally practiced or confined to astronomical cults. Some even argue it's a post-contact blend of native ritual and Jesuit reflection methods. Others say the silence hour predates even the Aztec Empire, inherited from Toltec mystics or even Olmec astronomers before them. What matters is that it feels ancient. When the hour ends, no bell rings. No one says a word. They simply stand, stretch, and return to their day, like the silence never happened. And just like that, the moment's gone, but you don't forget it. Mid-morning arrives like a whisper instead of a roar. There are no buzzing marketplaces here, no pounding sandals echoing off the stone. Just the muted rustle of reed brooms, the occasional call of a jungle bird, and Tezcatlipoca gently muttering a litany of numbers under his breath that you're seated under a broad thatched awning, its shade dappling your lap in mottled sun patterns. Tezcatlipoca is before you, not in the role of astronomer now, but teacher, which, for Aztec astronomers, was not a secondary task. It was sacred. You don't just learn the stars. You are slowly woven into their patterns on the table in front of you. Actually more of a low stone slab, rests a folded codex made of a metal paper, its surface a rich tan from tree bark, coated in lime to take pigment. He opens it with care, like a bird unfolding its wings. The pages crack softly. There they are, rows of dots, bars, spirals, glyphs, and jaguar paws that you're looking at a tonalamatal. a sacred calendar book. But not just a calendar. It's also a sleep diary, a cosmological map, and a diagnostic tool rolled into one. Today's glyph? A monkey, specifically, Ozomatli, the day sign associated with creativity, mischief, and, according to Tezcatlipoca, a tendency toward nightmares. You raise an eyebrow. He nods solemnly. Sleep deeply, dream wildly, and risk a visit from old gods with unfinished business, he says, only half joking. Each day sign had its own dream implications. Some nights were ideal for divine visions. Others, you were better off staying awake altogether. You remember last night's dreams, half sensory, half narrative, entirely bizarre. Tezcatlipoca gestures for you to draw them. You sketch something crude, a snake made of rain, a face in a flower, a hallway that never ends. He smiles and marks them down. This is part of the training. Some Tlamitanim track their dreams alongside celestial movements to map hidden cycles, patterns beyond the visible ones. One dream might not mean much, but a series, overlaid with Venus phases, eclipse paths, and sacred days, that could become prophecy. Scholars still argue whether these dream archives held any predictive power or if they were just poetic record-keeping. There's also the issue of subjective recall. How accurate could a dream retelling be, especially with a chilly animes-fueled brain? But the Aztec astronomers weren't looking for literal forecasts. They were scanning for symbols, echoes, fractal patterns repeating from the heavens down to your sleeping self, and you begin to see it. The way even your unconscious mind might become a telescope if you point it the right way. Nearby, an apprentice gently turns a piece of obsidian until it catches the light, using it as a makeshift mirror. He squints at his own eyes, watching the pupil dilate and contract. You ask what he's doing. Tezcatlipoca answers without looking up, calibrating internal time. You blink. That's a bit much, but apparently it's real. Part of the Tlamatanim's training involved syncing breath, pulse, and perception with the passing of time. Not just metaphorically, literally. Exercises included staring at flame tips, counting drops of water, or watching shadow movement on a fixed wall to attune the body to microcycles. The goal? To feel the moment a shadow passes true north. To dream at the exact second Venus slips above the horizon. To know when sleep is aligned with cosmic intention, not just exhaustion. You fidget slightly on your mat. Your own internal clock feels more like a melted candle. Then Tezcatlipoca starts talking about colors, not the pigments in the codex, but the subtle hues of dreams and waking hours. The Aztecs believed different times of day had spiritual hues: blue twilight, golden breath hour, crimson pulse time. Sleep was supposed to begin when the sky turned obsidian purple, a phrase with no direct translation, but one you instantly understand. And wakefulness? Ideally during white-feathered minutes. Those early slivers of morning when the air feels like it's still remembering the night. You close your eyes and try to recall those dream colors. But it's hazy, like breath on glass. Tezcatlipoca places a small bowl in front of you. Inside, powdered cacao, chili, and ground morning glory seeds. A warning glance. For clarity and vividness, not for taste. You sip. It's bitter, then sharp, then weirdly electric. This is no casual drink. Some researchers believe Aztec astronomers used mild psychoactive blends to stimulate specific dream patterns. Morning glory seeds contain compounds chemically related to LSD. When properly prepared, they could induce visions, or, at least, super vivid dreams that felt prophetic. Historians still debate whether these substances were used routinely or only on high ritual nights. Some suggest their effects were too unpredictable for regular use. Others argue that trained Tlamitanim knew exactly how to balance the doses to navigate between clarity and chaos. You're not sure which camp Tezcatlipoca belongs to. But his eyes glint like he's just had a visit from a hummingbird. As your heartbeat steadies and the earthy bitterness fades, the learning session begins again. This time, with chants, low, rhythmic recitations of day signs and their associated star paths. It's part memorization, part meditation. Your lips move with the group, even if you don't know what you're saying. The sound vibrates through your chest, grounding and lifting at once. That it's not music, but it feels like it. You start to nod off halfway through the seventh chant. Not from boredom, from the sheer rhythmic pull of it. Tezcatlipoca doesn't wake you. This, too, is part of the ritual. Sometimes, he said earlier, the gods speak clearest when you're not trying to listen. You don't fall asleep. Not really. But your mind flattens out like a calm lake, and the chant rides it like a feather boat. Later, you won't remember all the words, but you'll remember the shape of them. The way they curled around your thoughts and coaxed them toward something deeper. And for now, that's enough. Afternoon doesn't crash in. It seeps, like cool water into warm stone. The sun is now nearly overhead, and the courtyard buzzes gently, not with noise, but with stillness. It's the kind of hour when even birds fall quiet, their songs replaced by the occasional creak of a wooden wheel, the flap of a linen banner, or a yawn from an apprentice who didn't get quite enough clarity from his morning glory tea. You lie under the same thatched awning, slightly more aware of your limbs than you'd like to be. The floor beneath you is hot, your back sticking faintly to the woven mat. You're not supposed to move. This is part of the midday stillness ritual, a quiet, unmoving rest. Not for sleep, not for action, just suspension, like a leaf caught in midair. You're learning that in the life of an Aztec astronomer, the concept of rest has at least 6 different forms, and none of them involve snoring into a feather pillow. Tezcatlipoca, of course, doesn't even flinch. He sits in full sun, spine straight, hands folded in his lap, eyes open but not focused. He looks less like a man and more like a carved statue of serenity. Except he's sweating. A lot. Even Tlamadanime are still human. The reason for this midday ritual isn't just peace. It's alignment. The sun is directly overhead. You're at the zenith, the pivot of the day. For the Aztecs, this moment held a razor-thin window of potential. It was thought to be the time when dreams from the previous night could be read most clearly, interpreted through posture, breath, and even temperatured so yes. This is technically a dream review session, just without the lying down or the dreaming that a younger apprentice quietly approaches, holding a ceramic bowl with what appears to be incense paste. He smears a little on a flat stone and starts burning it. The scent is sharp, resinous, like dried herbs soaked in honey and regret. Copal smoke, according to traditional beliefs, acted as a conduit, a way for the invisible to be seen. It didn't just cleanse the space, it thinned the walls between waking memory and dream symbols. As the tendrils curl through the air, you begin to see the logic. The dreams that felt chaotic this morning now feel less like nonsense and more like signals. You remember the hallway that never ended. You remember the flower with a face. It blinked, right? Tezcatlipoca opens one eye and gives you the faintest of nods. He's watching how you respond. That's part of the test that it said that high-level Tlamadanime could identify a novice's dominant elemental alignment: water, wind, fire, earth, just by listening to them describe a week's worth of dreams. Not some whimsical astrology. An actual diagnostic tool. Too many burning dreams. You were fire-heavy, volatile. Not enough movement in the dreamscape. Too much earth. You risked intellectual stagnation. Historians still argue whether these elemental dream classifications were consistently applied or varied by region. Some think the system was codified during the height of Tenochtitlan. Others trace it to older Mixtec and Zapotec traditions. Either way, the system was serious business and used for everything from medical prescriptions to priesthood selection. You shift a little. Your leg is asleep. Technically, it's dreaming. You wiggle it discreetly. Don't disturb your bones. Tezcatlipoca murmurs. They remember. You blink. Bones, remember? Apparently yes. Aztec belief held that bones were repositories of ancestral energy. Sleep, or even rest, was an opportunity for your body to receive wisdom from deep within. The marrow, some said, retained echoes of past lives, which is poetic, and also mildly creepy. That a fringe theory floated among some Mesoamerican scholars suggests that certain temples were acoustically designed to enhance this kind of bodily memory. The layout of the space, the height of the ceiling, the materials used, all of it structured to amplify vibrations during periods of ritual rest. Whether that's true or just a modern academic fever dream, you can't say. But this place does feel oddly resonant, like your breath goes further than it should. Then comes the gentle ring of a shell bell. Not loud, not commanding, just a suggestion. Rest is over, not that you slept. But somehow, time passed. Tezcatlipoca rises and gestures toward a low platform, an astronomy station, but make it artisanal. There's no telescope, no chalkboard covered in equations, just four tall reeds planted in a square, and a stretched string that shimmers slightly from tension. This, he says, is how you measure sky tension. You pause. You assume he's being metaphorical. He is not. Sky tension, in this context, refers to the visible resistance between celestial bodies and the horizon, a kind of visual elasticity. On days when Venus rises too close to the sun, for example, the line of sight tightens, and that change in tension was thought to affect not just dreams, but digestion, mood, and the success of planting rituals. You squint. There's just sky. Tezcatlipoca moves the string gently and watches the reeds quiver. Your body can feel it before your eyes can measure it. He explains, there's a moment when you want to scoff. But then you remember how many scientists now talk about circadian rhythms, blue light, and melatonin cycles. How your body knows when it's time to sleep, even if you resist. Maybe this is just a more poetic and oddly specific version. Some historians suspect that sky tension observations influenced temple building schedules. Others think it's a metaphor that got wildly out of hand. Either way, it's yet another link between sleep, observation, and the calendar's heartbeat. As the sun begins to dip westward, the atmosphere subtly changes. The apprentices begin preparing small sleeping bundles, not for now, but for the evening's nap session. Yes, there's more sleep coming. Apparently, full sleep cycles were rarely left to one long overnight block. The Tlamadanime favored polyphasic sleep, dividing rest into strategic intervals. Naps were timed to planetary positions, dream type, and energy flow. You think about your own caffeine-fueled, anxiety-shredded 8-hour stretches. And then this elegant dance of waking and resting, light and shadow, repetition and variation. It's not efficient, but it's intentional. And that's the word that keeps coming up. Intention. These astronomers didn't sleep to escape. They didn't rest to recover. They slept on purpose, to track patterns, to enter conversations with gods, to balance themselves between star and stone, sky and soil. So now, with the afternoon shadows stretching longer and the taste of dried chili still clinging to your teeth, you begin preparing for your next intentional dose. Not because you're exhausted, but because the stars expect you. You lie flat on your back, the late afternoon sun softened by woven cloth stretched across the sleeping pavilion. The light is amber now, warm, slanting, not quite tired but preparing for its shift to end. Around you, the other apprentices settle into position like quiet birds folding in for the night, even though it's not night yet. This is nap time, Aztec Astronomer edition, ritualized, observed, and deeply structured. That you're learning that in this world, sleep isn't downtime. It's data collection. Your mat is positioned precisely along a northeast axis. Tezcatlipoca adjusted it himself, muttering something about Quetzalcoatl's serpentine tail flicking toward the solstice point. It's unclear if he was joking. Probably not. Even the act of lying down is practiced. You're instructed to place your left hand on your chest and your right on your stomach, one foot slightly tucked under the other. Why? To balance inner fire, says a senior apprentice with a straight face. You decide not to ask for a second opinion. The incense returns, this time a gentler blend. Copal again, but with crushed marigold and something sweetly herbal you can't name. It's not there to make you sleepy. It's there to make the gods comfortable, in case they drop by during your nap, because this isn't just rest. This is dream scouting. Yes, that's the term. Dream scouting. A practice unique to certain groups of Tlamadanime, where naps were used to deliberately enter shallow dream states for brief reconnaissance, checking for omens, visual cues, or even prophetic anomalies. You don't dive deep enough to meet a rain god face to face. But your eyelids grow heavy, your breathing slows, and your thoughts begin to drift sideways. One moment you're listening to the rustle of palm fronds. The next, you're riding a floating obsidian disc across a lake shaped like a jaguar's. It's not full-on dreaming. More like sliding around inside a story you haven't read yet. When the shell bell sounds again, 30 minutes later, you rise slowly. You're groggy, but not disoriented. Tezcatlipoca is already recording dream fragments from another student. You try to recall your own. Obsidian lake. Jaguar eye. A woman made of hummingbirds. Yeah, That's probably going in the scroll. Tezcatlipoca hands you a thin charcoal pencil and a sheet of Amati paper. Draw first. Speak later, he says. This is an actual method in the sleep training process. Visual first recall. Aztec astronomers believed that the logical brain distorted dream memory, so sketching impressions before describing them helped preserve their symbolic integrity. You produce something jagged and unconvincing. Tezcatlipoca nods solemnly, like you've just captured a fragment of divine wisdom. Honestly, you're not sure if he's being supportive or sarcastic. Once your drawing is done, you're taken, quietly, still half dreaming, to the small reflection basin. Not metaphorical. It's literally a waist-high obsidian bowl filled with perfectly still water. Another apprentice gently stirs the surface, then lets it still again. You're supposed to look in, count your breath to 7, and see if the dream leaves a shadow. You don't ask how they define a shadow. You just look, nothing unusual. Except, your eyes seem a little older, you blink. It's gone. Water scrying was a minor tool in the sleep astronomy arsenal, often dismissed by European chroniclers as superstition. But modern anthropologists are rethinking it. Some suspect it was a form of hypnotic feedback, a way to trigger deeper self-analysis using reflection and controlled breath. But what's clear is this. The Tlamadanime were not casual about naps. These weren't lazy, midday siestas. They were portals. And with the right mental calibration, the line between memory, dream, and vision became so thin it could barely hold its shape. One fringe theory you overhear from an older apprentice. That's right. Even in the Aztec world, there are conspiracy guys, claims that elite dreamers could share dream space. Like networked consciousness. No proof, obviously, but a persistent belief that certain glyphs, if drawn in unison by a group, could anchor multiple minds to the same dreamscape. You don't bring it up to Tezcatlipoca. He'd either laugh or add it to the curriculum. A soft bell rings again. Not for waking. For sweat. You're guided to a low stone building near the far side of the complex. No doors, just a thick wool curtain. Inside, darkness, steam, stones that hiss when water hits them. A Temazcal, traditional sweat lodge. Small, round, womb-like. Hot enough to make your eyebrows reconsider their existence. Why now? Because cleansing mattered before full sleep. The Aztecs didn't just wash their bodies. They steamed out the interference, emotional static, mental clutter, anything that might pollute their dreams. This isn't luxury. It's maintenance. Inside the sweat lodge, you're surrounded by bodies barely visible in the dim light. Everyone's silent, breathing in unison. Water splashed on the stones releases bursts of eucalyptus and pine. Someone begins a soft chant. 4 notes, repeated. A rhythm to pace your pulse. Your skin drips, your breath deepens. You lose sense of time. According to some Aztec texts, elite astronomer priests used the Temazcal not just for detox, but to simulate liminal states, between waking and sleep, between life and death. There are stories of vision quests beginning in these chambers, of star maps appearing in the mist, of ancestors speaking from within the stones. Historians still debate whether these tales were metaphor or literal ritual. Either way, you leave the sweat lodge stripped of tension, like someone wrung out your stress with a pair of stone hands. Outside, the sky is darkening. Evening rituals approach. Tezcatlipoca gives you a nod. You pass this part. Not because of anything you did, but because you didn't resist. You gave in to the architecture of it all. You followed the dream. And now it's time for the night to follow you. Dusk arrives not with a bang, but a hush. The sky over the observatory flushes to deep violet, and the temperature drops just enough to make your damp skin shiver. It's the kind of quiet that makes you notice your own breath. Even the wind seems to tiptoe. You follow the others to the edge of the observatory courtyard, where a stone platform awaits, angled slightly westward, toward the fading sun. Here begins the evening calibration, a peculiar and deeply ingrained ritual among the Aztec Tlamadanime. It's not about watching the sunset for beauty or romance. It's about checking if the stars are listening. A junior astronomer hands you a small polished disc of obsidian. You're told to hold it in your palm and tilt it just so, until the last light of the sun catches its surface. Watch for the blink, he whispers. Blink. Before you can ask, it happens. A tiny flash, just a flicker as the light hits the stone and reflects not into your eyes, but somewhere, sideways. As though the sun, for the briefest moment, acknowledged you personally. You glance at Tezcatlipoca. He nods approvingly. That was your alignment. Now, What you've just experienced is one of the lesser-known Aztec sleep rituals, evening glint testing. It's a diagnostic moment, a way to check whether your internal energy, called tonality, is in sync with the cosmos. Too dull a glint, and it might indicate unrest. Too sharp, and you could be at risk of psychic overstimulation during sleep. Just right? You're clear to proceed into deeper dreaming. This isn't superstition dressed in feathers. Aztec scholars kept records of glint results alongside dream logs and even illness reports. Some modern historians think this was an early attempt at correlating circadian rhythm imbalances with behavioral and emotional fluctuations. Basically, you don't glow? You might be cranky later. Now calibrated, you're ushered to a side chamber, the sleeping annex, a stone and reed structure divided into narrow, padded alcoves. Each one contains a woven mat, a thick woolen blanket, and a ceremonial headrest, a carved wooden ark designed not for comfort, but to hold your head in a particular dream-ready position. No sprawling, no face mashing into pillows here. You lie back, positioning your neck at a specific tilt that supposedly aligns your dream channel with celestial flow. And yes, you're expected to fall asleep like this. Good luck. Before lights out, well, torch out, you're handed a tiny square of something chewy and earthy. It's alaleuchi, the ground seed of the morning glory plant. Mildly psychoactive, perfectly legal in its time. Traditionally, it was consumed in tiny doses to loosen the veil between dream layers, just enough to nudge the mind toward lucidity without diving off the deep end. You chew slowly, and your tongue goes a little numb. Welcome to the world's earliest sleep supplement. The Aztecs treated dreaming the way modern people treat technology, with awe, anxiety, and loads of user protocols. The sleep annex, for example, was strictly no talking. Not even a whisper. Any sound could muddy the dream stream. As Tezcatlipoca had explained earlier, once you're settled, the room darkens. A soft chime rings 3 times. That's the signal. You close your eyes. Sleep, finally, arrives, but not in the usual way. It feels vertical, as though you're falling not backward, but downward through time. There's weight, but it's not unpleasant. Like sinking into warm moss. Your limbs forget their function. Your breath becomes a gentle tide. Then, images, not vivid dreams, not yet. More like pieces, snippets. A cracked mass floating through black water. A field of crows flying backward. The taste of salt and burnt sugar. You try not to chase them. That's the trick. Let them come. Let them mean what they mean. This stage is called first dream bloom, the initial surfacing of symbols in Aztec dream ritual. Scholars still argue whether these images were considered prophecy, memory, or collective unconscious. Some say the Tlamadanaim believed this phase was where ancestors spoke in metaphor. Others argue it was simply the mind's way of digesting celestial influence. The experience is fleeting. You're not yet deep enough for full immersion. But it sets the tone. And then, somewhere far in the background, outside your dream but inside your awareness, you hear a drumbeat. Faint, steady. Someone is playing a huedel, a sacred drum, outside the annex, on a separate platform. It's meant to keep time with the stars, tapping out the rhythm of the Tonalpwali, the sacred calendar. The idea is simple. Match your heartbeat to the sky's heartbeat. It works. You sink deeper. This time the dream is fuller. You're in a garden that hangs in the air, suspended by woven vines that stretch into the clouds. A serpent loops through the treetops, but it smiles at you. The stars above aren't stars, they're eyes. Watching, yes, but not judging. Just recording. When you wake, it's not dramatic. No jolt. Just a slow resurfacing. Like a diver rising to the top of a pool. The annex is still dim, but a soft yellow glow tells you it's nearing midnight. You stretch without thinking and regret it. The headrest has not done your neck any favors. Outside, the world is still. The other apprentices remain asleep. But Tezcatlipoca is standing beneath a fig tree, watching the stars. He gestures for you to join him. Tell me, he says, how many eyes watched you tonight? You pause. Maybe 9. He smiles. Good. That means they're interested. You're not sure who they are, but somehow that answer makes sense. There's a saying among the Tlamadanaim. A dream unspoken is a map untraveled. So you begin to recount the garden, the serpent, the sky eyes. Tezcatlipoca listens closely, nodding at key moments. Occasionally, he scribbles something onto a slate. You wonder if you're being graded. He finally says, you are close to entering the Tlalocan threshold. You nod, like you know what that means. You do not, but you will, because midnight is only the halfway mark. There's more sleep to come. But this next phase, that's where things get weird. You return to the sleep annex with a sense of low-key dread mixed with curiosity. Midnight sleep is different here. The first half of the night, you now realize, was just prelude, a polite knocking on the dream door. What comes next is deep state dreaming, the kind Aztec astronomers called Neditalitli, or the dancing sleep. You're not entirely sure whether the word implies grace or chaos. Tezcatlipoca wasn't clear, but before you can ponder it, he presses something small into your hand, a smooth bead carved from bone. "Keep this in your palm," he says. "If you drop it, you've gone too far." "Excuse me?" "Apparently, this is an old Tlamatanime trick. Hold a small object as you fall asleep. If your grip loosens and it drops, the noise wakes you gently before you slip past the point of no return. It's like dream spelunking with a safety rope. Only the safety rope is bone. Back in your alcove, you tuck yourself into the usual rigid posture. The headrest still hates your neck, but you're not here for comfort. You're here for precision, and soon, you're under. The transition this time is rapid. No floating, no dipping, just a sudden elsewhere that you're standing in a hallway of spinning mirrors. Each one reflects not your current self, but versions of you in different clothes, different ages, even different species. In one, you're feathered. In another, you're molten bronze. It's unsettling, but oddly logical. You're dreaming in a scholar's language, symbol first, grammar later. This phase of sleep was the crucible of prophecy for the Aztec astronomer priests. They believed that between midnight and dawn, the soul was untethered enough to walk freely in other realms, places ruled not by physics, but by glyphs and meaning. And in those realms, stars didn't just shine. They spoke. In your dream, a star peels itself off the sky like a sticker and drops into your hand. It's not hot. It hums like a tuning fork. When you place it against your ear, because of course you do, it says only, "Remember the blue house." You wake with a gasp. The bone bead is still in your hand. Now here's the weird part. When you sit up and glance across the annex, you see another apprentice already awake. He stares at you, then says, "Did yours say something too?" So, that's not normal, right? Aztec dream sharing was never mainstream, but certain texts reference it obliquely. One codex mentions noble twins whose sleep was a single braid. Another describes 5 astronomers who dreamed the same falling star. Historians still argue whether these were poetic metaphors, records of hallucinogen-enhanced rituals, or actual accounts of group lucid phenomena. That you're leaning toward the last one, honestly, because the kid across the room? He draws the exact same star you saw, jagged edges, 3 trailing lines, dot in the center. No variations. You compare dreams in hushed tones. The same hallway, same mirrors. Different message, though. His star told him, "Avoid the crooked tooth." That's vague enough to feel important. Tezcatlipoca appears beside you like a shadow that grew a face. He says, peering at both your sketches. "That hasn't happened since the dry year." Then he claps you both on the back, as if to say, "Well, good luck with that." And just like that, he disappears again. Welcome to advanced dream training. The rest of the night continues in fits, short dreams that flare up, then fade like fireworks. You wake again at one point to find someone quietly burning tajitas, Aztec marigold, near the annex doorway. A scent to encourage vivid dreaming, supposedly. Also, to ward off bad omens. You're not sure which purpose is in play. Possibly both. One of the most peculiar things about Aztec dreaming, especially among astronomers, is the use of dream glyphs. These weren't just journal entries. They were symbolic fragments, recorded as shorthand for specific dream elements. A bird with 2 tails meant confusion. A broken jug might mean a loss of memory. A spiral over a foot? Journey incoming. That you're taught some of these symbols the next morning. It's like learning a new alphabet that only applies when your eyes are closed. But back in the dream, just before dawn, you get one more hit that you're walking through a library made of vines. Books hang from the branches like fruit. You pull one down, open it, and inside, nothing but blue paint. Every page, just blue. The exact shade of the blue house from the earlier dream. Your chest tightens, and you feel this odd sensation, like you're being watched, not by eyes, but by meanings. The kind that can only be known, never described. And then, the sound of conch shell horns that you're pulled upward, hard. A dream ejection. Eyes open, sky. Pale. It's dawned. In the Aztec calendar, the hours before sunrise are sacred. known as Yawali Ehekatl, or night wind time, a phase associated with Ehekatl Quetzalcoatl, the god of wind, breath, and new beginnings. It's also considered the most dangerous dream phase, because it's when your soul might choose not to return. Luckily, yours did, but you still feel a little wobbly, as though part of you is still flipping through that vine library, wondering what was in the unwritten book. Breakfast is silent. Everyone's too dazed to talk. Tezcatlipoca breaks the silence with a casual, "So, who saw the twins?" 3 hands go up, your skin tingles. You raise yours too. He nods and writes your names on a separate scroll. The group? Quiet. Respectful. Maybe a little afraid that you've passed into a new stage. One where dreams don't just affect you, they recruit you. The bees have officially rebranded. Not that they held a press conference or started a lifestyle blog, but there's a noticeable shift in their behavior since Apollo left. Less dramatic wing flaring. Fewer aerial sonnets. More quiet buzzing and business as usual. They've gone minimalist. You watch them from a soft patch of moss under the fig tree, the one that used to be Apollo's amphora throne. It's just a tree again now. A few combs dangle like chandeliers with boundary issues, but most of the grand design has mellowed. It's become cozy. Gavin floats by, balancing a petal like a waiter with a fancy tray. You swear he winks. You become their observer now, their biographer, their designated tall mammal with opposable thumbs and zero nectar. Your job is simple. Stay out of the way and refill the rosemary dish every 3 days. You do it gladly. Without Apollo's high-concept meddling, the bees have leaned into what they do best: make honey, pollinate flowers, and occasionally headbutt a butterfly for looking at them funny. The meadow, once a stage, is now a sanctuary. And yet, you can't help but notice something odd happening with the honey. It's glowing, not aggressively, just a soft shimmer under the moonlight, like someone stirred in a drop of starlight or a pinch of philosophical clarity. You taste a bit. It's sweeter than usual, with a strange aftertaste, almost like cedar smoke and memory. The kind of honey that makes you remember someone's name you haven't spoken aloud in years. You stare at the bees. What did you put in this? Gavin does not respond. You begin to suspect something divine is still happening. Historians still argue whether divine relics ever left traces in honey. The Delphic bee priestesses claim that prophecies sometimes sank into the comb, encoded in flavor. A citrusy sting could mean war. A bitter tinge? Betrayal. And once, reportedly, a particularly mini batch foretold the invention of socks. You spend the next 3 days sampling every batch of honey like a sleep-deprived wine critic. Point 1 tastes like time and regret. Another? Apricot and foreshadowing. A third tastes like something you can't describe, but it makes your teeth tingle and your left ear itch. You decide that one's a weather warning and leave it alone. It's not just the taste. The bees are moving differently, too. Some form small circles midair and just hover, like they're waiting for someone to notice. Others draw tight figure eights, but not for flowers. Just to do it. A kind of ritual. That's when you find the circle. It's burned faintly into the grass near the edge of the meadow. Perfectly round. No scorch marks, no footprints, just flattened stalks and a clean, deliberate spiral. Inside, there's a single petal. Lavender. You call it the omen patch. It buzzes when you get too close. That night, you lie awake under the stars, listening to the hum. It's not chaotic anymore. It pulses gently, like a heartbeat. Like they're waiting. Not for Apollo, he's clearly off trying to serenade olives into early ripening, but for something else, maybe even for you. The next morning, the bees are gone. All of them. No Gavin. No background hum. No spiral flights or pollen gossip. Just silence and a cold wind through the rosemary bush. You sit very still. You check every comb, every flower, even the omen patch. Nothing. It's like they were never here, but the honey remains. So much of it. Stacked in neat jars they obviously didn't physically make, unless someone taught them glass blowing, which now glisten in the sunlight like golden monuments. You touch one. It's warm. Each jar has a single symbol on the lid. Not letters, but tiny etchings. A wave, a flame, a spiral, a sleeping eye. You run your finger along one and feel your chest flutter. Something shifts inside you, like a dream waking up. You taste from the jar with the sleeping eye. Everything slows. You're not in the meadow anymore. You're in a cave, lit by beeswax torches. Walls made of amber combs. A low hum in the distance, like a lullaby you forgot you knew. A figure steps forward, tall, robed in pollen-colored silk, face covered in a veil of tiny bees. Do you see now? She asks. You blink, and you're back. Same moss. Same sun. Same stack of jars, The bees aren't gone. They've just evolved. They're somewhere else. Another layer of existence. Not higher, not lower, just shifted. They've moved into myth. The jars are their gift. You spend the rest of the day organizing them. Not by flavor, but by symbol. You build a shelf from the old amphory shards and arrange them like a sleepy museum exhibit. As evening falls, a single bee returns. Gavin. He lands on your knee, head tilts slightly, then zips toward the almond patch. He hovers there, spins once, and vanishes into the grass. And that's enough. You nod to the jars. You whisper a thank you. Then you light a tiny beeswax candle, just to keep the hum going. That night, the honey dreams begin. Not bad dreams. Not scary. Just vivid. You're flying again. But this time you're not alone. A whole swarm beside you, each bee trailing light, each wing beat a note in some forgotten lullaby. You feel weightless, unworried, part of something much older than fig trees or gods with hobbies. You sleep deeply, without dreams, for the first time in weeks, and in the morning, more jars. The line between dreams and daylight is blurring faster now. You wake up feeling like you've just returned from a long conversation, except you're not entirely sure who you were talking to, or where. But you do remember one thing. Your dream self handed your waking self a message. Something scribbled onto paper. Something urgent. Only, there's no paper in your hand. You check your mat, your blanket, your body. Nothing. But when you glance down at your forearm, there's a faint outline of blue pigment. It's not ink, not exactly. More like a memory stain. The shape? You'd swear it's the same blue house again. Simplified, reduced to just a triangle and square, right? So this is normal now. Tezcatlipoca greets you with a smirk. Your glyph is traveling, he says. That's a good sign. Maybe. And then he walks off, leaving you with a deeply unhelpful maybe that it's time for another ritual. Of course. This one aimed at ensuring your tonality doesn't stray too far. After all, Aztec cosmology insists your body is a container, and your tonality is the sacred heat that gives it life. But that heat is mercurial. It can wander, get cold, drift through dreams, and not return. Hence, the sweat house reintegration. Imagine a small, dome-shaped structure built from stones and covered with thick cloth and reeds. A temazcal. Think sauna, but ceremonial and aggressively personal. You strip down, enter the dark, and sit cross-legged as steaming stones hiss with water and herbs. Sweet marjoram. Episode. Copal resin. It's pitch black. Wet heat curls around your skin like a damp serpent. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts melt. The Tezcatlipoca's voice is a low chant outside the dome. Nothing fancy, just a grounding rhythm. You return to your body. You return to your breath. You return to the place that holds you. It's comforting until he throws in the next line. You are not all that came back. Wait, what? The temazcal isn't just to reheat your wandering soul. It's to smoke out anything that tried to hitch a ride. Apparently, this is a known issue. Some Tlamadonime believe dreams were transit zones, like spiritual airports, crowded with entities, messengers, or stray bits of other people's thoughts. Now and then, something follows you home. A sensation, a whisper, a shadow in the corner of your sleep. Nothing malevolent, necessarily. But not you. Historians still argue whether this belief stemmed from early psychological insight or actual trance experiences. Was this a metaphor for trauma and lingering emotions? Or did the Aztecs genuinely believe foreign spirits could cling to your dream heat? Either way, you exit the sweat house groggy but clear. Lighter. The strange hum in your bones, the one you didn't even notice was there, has faded. Good. Back to stargazing. Tonight's ritual isn't about sleep. It's about dream alignment. Because while the body sleeps every night, the sky doesn't always match your tempo. The Aztecs timed certain dreams to align with celestial conjunctions, moments when Venus crossed paths with the moon, or when Mars hovered low and red above the horizon. These weren't just pretty sights. They were windows that you're taken to a high platform near the sacred ball court. Below, the city sleeps in layers of obsidian and firelight. Above, the stars will like clockwork. The priests adjust obsidian mirrors and line them up with a specific portion of sky, the place where Venus will rise just before dawn. You're handed one of the mirrors. Told to breathe slowly, to hold the mirror in your lap and look not at the reflection, but through it. So you do. And slowly, shapes begin to emerge. Not physical ones, just suggestions. Outlines your brain fills in on its own. A jaguar curled in the stars. A mountain breathing fire. A woman with no face, holding a torch made of feathers. When you blink, it's all gone, but the feeling stays. Later, you learn the Aztecs called this smoke sing, a soft form of divination done when the veil between waking and sleeping is thin. Unlike full dreams, these visions are semi-conscious, induced by rhythm, breath, and celestial angles. Think guided hallucination, minus the mushrooms that you're not alone in the experience. Others share similar symbols: the mountain, the jaguar, a faceless woman. It's a shared dream again. Tezcatlipoca frowns, just a little, not out of worry, but calculation. He murmurs something about convergence, then scrolls a note into his codex. That's comforting. In the days that follow, your schedule becomes even more lopsided. Less daytime chores, more night duty. You're assigned to the star Echo Watch, where astronomer dreamers sit in pairs, listening for what they call tlacanali murmurs, burning water, whispers that don't worry. That doesn't mean the stars are screaming. It's just a poetic term for the moments when dream glyphs begin repeating across multiple minds, unprovoked. A kind of psychic resonance. You and your watch partner, a girl named Yatzel, take turns napping in the annex and recording what you dream. The overlap is minor at first, similar colors, vague shapes. But then one night, you both dream of the blue house again. Only now it's cracked down the middle. You wake at the same moment. You look at each other and no words. Just nod. The blue house has become more than a symbol now. It's a warning, or a countdown. And somewhere deep in your bones, you know it's going to appear again. Only next time, something will be inside. You start seeing the blue house even when you're awake. First, it's subtle. A painted tile on a passing cart. A woven blanket hung to dry, with a square and triangle stitched in indigo thread. Then it escalates. The glyph scratched into temple steps, flickering in candlelight, traced in your morning gruel by accident. Or something that doesn't feel like accident. You're told not to panic. You're not the first. Tezcatlipoca gently explains that recurring dream glyphs can leak into waking life for dreamers whose tonality has become highly sensitized. It's not possession. It's not madness. It's resonance. Your internal compass now responds to the echo of cosmic symbols. Like a tuning fork that hums when the sky sings. You're now in what they call third phase integration. This is when sleep, dreams, sky, and waking begin to braid themselves into one continuous experience. You're no longer just someone having dreams. You're a person existing between frequencies. Still, it's disorienting. The other apprentices keep their distance. Not out of fear, necessarily, but all. You're known now. Marked. Tezcatlipoca assigns you a minder. Yatzel, of course. She's already halfway there herself. Don't fight it, she says one night, as you both sit beneath a ceiling of gold stars. Just treat it like you're translating a very slow, very symbolic language. So you start keeping a double journal. In the daybook, you write what you see. Daily duties. Colors. Incidents. In the dream book, you record the nightly fragments. The humming staircases. The giant obsidian face. The blue house, now surrounded by water, with smoke coming from its tiny, ink-black windows. One morning, you realize you've written the same phrase in both books. It's waiting. You don't remember writing it. Around this time, Tezcatlipoca brings you to the chamber of temporal mirrors. This isn't for tourists. It's a private room tucked deep into the observatory's inner sanctum. The door is obsidian. The inside, cold, quiet, lined with polished black mirrors, dozens of them, each perfectly aligned to catch not your face, but the space just past your reflection. You're told to stand still, to watch the mirror at the center. So you do, and after some time, the mirror begins to shift, not physically, but perceptually. Your reflection starts to move differently. It tilts its head when you don't. It frowns before you do. Eventually, it smiles. Historians still argue whether these mirror rituals were spiritual allegories or a form of advanced self-hypnosis. Were the Aztecs inducing a trance to trigger inner insights? Or did they believe the mirror was literally a portal into an alternate version of themselves? Perhaps a future self? What you feel in that room is hard to categorize. You're not scared, but you do sense you're being watched back. Your mirror self is learning, mimicking, waiting. Tezcatlipoca enters the chamber quietly behind you. He lays a hand on your shoulder and whispers, "You're ready." You don't ask for what. You already know. The next evening, you're guided into the sleep gate that it's not a gate in the physical sense. It's a ceremony, a crossing. The final stage of the astronomer-dreamer path that you're bathed in moonlight, rubbed with crushed flowers, bound gently in cotton ropes, to remind your body to return. Then laid in a deep pit lined with soft volcanic sand. Around the pit, the others gather. They hum low notes, like the slow breathing of the earth, above you. The stars. All of them. This isn't sleep as you've known it. This is passage. As your eyes close, the sky seems to flip. The stars fall downward. The pit becomes a tunnel. And your breath is no longer yours, it's borrowed. You're entering the deep layer, the zone only accessible during certain celestial alignments, when dreamers like you become transparent enough to pass through. What does it feel like? It's like being water. No bones. No direction. Just drifting in warm ink, surrounded by memories that aren't yours. You see the cracked blue house again. But this time, it opens, inside, a stairwell spiraling down and down, into a glowing pool shaped like a heart. Not a cartoon heart. A real one. Beating. Wet. Alive. The pool pulses with glyphs. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. You reach out, and they rise like steam, forming constellations that bloom and dissolve. Then you hear it. A name. Your name? No. Not quite that it's older than you. But it fits. You wake up gasping in the sand pit. The stars above haven't moved. But somehow, hours have passed. The sky has shifted into first dawn, a brief, mystical twilight just before the sun breaks. The other dreamers are silent, watching you closely. They've seen this before, but not often. Tezcatlipoca leans in, eyes heavy but kind. You crossed the threshold, he says. And you came back whole. Mostly, you drink water. Lots of it. Then they feed you warm maize porridge and let you rest for the entire morning. No duties, no mirrors, no blue houses. Just sunlight on your face, and the hush of knowing you've passed through a doorway most never even see. The sleep after the deep layer is unlike anything before it. You don't just rest, you dissolve. No edges. No time. Just warmth and weightlessness, like floating in honey light. You wake slowly, blinking at the reed roof above, already forgetting most of what happened down there in the glyph pool. That's the way of it. The dreaming mind keeps its secrets tucked in folds you'll only unfold later. Maybe years from now, during a bath, or while staring at a pile of squash that you're told to take the next 10 days in quiet reflection. Not isolation, but retreat. And that's what they call it. The moon rest, no sunrise duties. No chart calculations. No mushroom fumes. Just slow walks. Sketching. Whispering songs to yourself while watching ants carry seeds twice their size. You eat soft food. You lie in the sun. You sleep when your body says sleep. You begin to understand why the astronomers know so much. Not because they see more stars, but because they allow more stillness. During one of these rests, you visit the Library of Winds, a misnamed but magical structure built atop a high ridge where the breeze never stops. It's less a building than a collection of wind-sculpted alcoves, each carved with spiral glyphs and faded murals that crackle when touched. The walls whisper if you press your ear close enough. Yatzil takes you there. She doesn't say much, just points to one wall in particular, where a painting shows a woman lying in bed while 3 birds, each with a star in its beak, hover above her, mid-flight. A small house floats in the background. It's blue. You've never seen that image before, and yet, there it is, perfectly replicating the dream house from your own visions. You turn to Yatzil, stunned, but she's already walking away, muttering. The house finds all of us eventually. Historians still argue whether this library was a record-keeping site or simply an acoustic shrine. Some say astronomers came here not to read, but to listen, to the wind, to the past, to dreams that had been dreamt by others before them. By the 5th day, you're dreaming again, but it's not like before. Now, your dreams start with clarity. No wandering aimlessly through cornfields that shift into snakes. No endless loops of walking through markets that smell like obsidian and orange peel. Now, your dreams begin with direction. You stand in a courtyard. You bow to someone behind a curtain. You speak a name aloud, except it isn't your name or anyone's, really. It's a word that feels like a shape. And in speaking it, You trigger the sky to change. The stars rearrange. The blue house vanishes. That's new WY day. You try not to overanalyze. But you catch yourself drawing stars compulsively, even in your food bowls, even with your finger on the ground. Tezcatlipoca laughs and tells you that's good. The mind is bleeding into the hand. That's when you know it's real. And then something unusual happens that you're invited to a ceremony without explanation and no preparation. No fasting, no dream mushrooms, just a silent tap on the shoulder, and suddenly you're following Tezcatlipoca, Yatzil, and three others into a narrow hall you've never noticed before. It smells of lime plaster and cedar smoke. The walls close in. The air gets colder to the end, a stone basin. Clear water. No decoration. Look, says Yatzil. You lean in, expecting another vision, another symbol, but you just see your reflection. Your face. Tired. Curious. Alive. Then the water shifts, not ripples. A complete transformation. Your reflection disappears. In its place, a younger version of Tezcatlipoca. No beard. Eyes wide with fear or awe. You can't tell which. He's also looking into water. Possibly this same basin years ago. The image flickers. Another face replaces his. Then another. Woman, man, child. Hundreds of reflections, stacked like cards, flashing past so fast they almost blur into one that you step back. Tezcatlipoca speaks softly. This is the basin of memory. All who've crossed the threshold are recorded here. Not their thoughts, not their stories, just their presence. The basin remembers who dreamed. It's strange to realize that your entire journey, weeks, maybe months of careful ritual and quiet nights, has culminated in a puddle that remembers your face. And yet, you understand. This isn't about you. It never was. It's about continuity. Threads in a much longer weave. Historians still argue whether this basin was literal or metaphorical. Could water hold memory? Or was this just a clever device to prompt internal reflection? You're too tired to care. You sleep deeply that night. And when you dream, the house doesn't come. Instead, there's a tree. Enormous. With eyes in its trunk. It hums. You wake with bark in your fingernails. You don't ask how it got there. The days that follow are peaceful. You're not quite the same. Your body feels slower. But not in a bad way. More like a river that has found its bend. You observe more. Speak less. Listen always. You begin helping other apprentices now. New ones. Nervous ones. The ones who still think the moon might bite them. You teach them how to record their sleep rhythms. How to set out herbs to catch dreams. How to read glyphs even when they won't stay still. You tell them it's okay to be scared. The sky is big. That's its job. Sometimes, when no one's looking, you visit the basin again. You don't look in the water. Just sit nearby. Let the quiet find you that it's during one of those visits that Tezcatlipoca sits beside you and says, "Soon you'll be asked to join the upper cycle." You nod. You don't know what that means yet, but you're ready to find out. And for the first time in what feels like forever, you sleep without dreaming no stars. No glyphs, just darkness. The upper cycle begins, not with fanfare or fire, but with a bowl of warm amaranth and a quiet sunrise that barely peeks past the mountains. No ceremony, no singing, just you, rising before the birds, walking slowly to the astronomer's high quarter. You wear a simple wrap, woven with dark thread and stitched with the faint shape of a spiral, your only new marker. If you weren't paying attention, you'd think nothing changed, but the air feels thinner up here, not in a suffocating way. More like the space is reserved, less cluttered. Even the shadows behave differently, curling softly around corners like they know they're intruding. Here, in the high observatory, the floors are polished limestone, cool beneath your feet. The walls are open, no windows, just wide arches that frame the sky like paintings. This is where the real work happens. Not predicting eclipses or dazzling the crowds with comet sightings, but tracking the quiet rhythms no one else notices. Things like how long the sun lingers between breaths, or what birds sing before the moon rises, your first task in the upper cycle. Not astronomy, not glyph work. It's sleep. Again, you smile, because of course it is, but this time, it's different. The focus isn't what you dream. It's what the others dream, and when, and how deeply, and how often they speak in their sleep. You're given 3 apprentices to observe. You watch them rest. You log their breathing, their finger twitches, even their snores, which vary wildly. from kitten purrs to full obsidian grinder vibes. You begin to notice patterns. Point 1 always turns north before deep sleep. Another flails during full moons. The youngest murmurs water glyphs on cloudless nights. It's fascinating. You sketch their patterns with obsessive curiosity. Historians still debate the exact reason Aztec astronomers tracked sleep among their own. Some claim it was simply to enhance physical health for optimal observation. Others argue it was a spiritual alignment. If your body's rest matched the stars' movement, your mind could better sync with divine cycles. Whatever the case, you can't stop drawing circles. Spirals. You fill entire codex pages with roundness. Round as the moon. Round as closed eyes. Round as the stone platform in the middle of the observatory, where senior astronomers sometimes stand and stare directly at nothing for long periods. You ask Tezcatlipoca about that. He shrugs. Sometimes the math arrives in silence. And sometimes it arrives in absurdity. Point 1 night. A messenger comes running in with a breathless report. The moon's late. Cue panic. Half the astronomers scramble to the viewing decks. Others run calculations in charcoal. Someone blames soup. Someone else blames that one apprentice who sneezes too loud. Yatzil just folds her arms and waits. Eventually, the moon rises. 6 minutes later than expected. Tezcatlipoca frowns. Not angry, just curious. Mark it, he says. Sleep on it. So you do. That night, your dreams are strange. The moon doesn't rise at all. Instead, it hovers beneath the horizon, peeking upward like a shy child. And behind it, something moves. Slow, dark, geometric. You wake uneasy. You mention it to no one. Days pass. Then, another anomaly. This time, a meteor appears where there shouldn't be one. A faint green flicker. Just for a moment. Enough to unnerve the apprentices. But the upper cycle crew doesn't panic. They log it. Then return to their slow breathing, their tea sipping, their tracking of sleep murmurs. You begin to understand their rhythm. They're not just scientists. They're attuners, tuning their bodies like instruments, waiting for the cosmos to strum them gently. And yet, not everything is solemn. Every eighth night, the upper cycle hosts a rest feast. It's exactly what it sounds like. Blankets everywhere. Spice drinks. Warm stones tucked into sleeping wraps. People eat until drowsy, then collapse into a heap of tangled limbs and snores. A kind of chaotic cuddle pile, except everyone's a scholar, and at least one person is murmuring about time ratios in their sleep. You find these feasts oddly emotional. There's a tenderness to it all. To grown adults willingly letting go in front of one another. Trusting the group to guard their dreaming minds. At the 10th feast, someone brings a dog. No one knows whose it is. It stays. It curls up next to you. And in your sleep, you dream of stars arranged in paw prints. Point 1 day. Tezcatlipoca hands you a folded cloth. Inside, a stone pendant carved with 7 concentric circles. For when you speak, he says. You ask, speak what? He smiles. You'll know when. And so begins the speaking week. For 7 days, you're tasked with addressing the sleeping apprentices. But not randomly. You must time your speech to their deepest REM, when their minds are most open. You recite ancient glyphs, sing vowel chants, whisper stories of the first astronomers who thought the sky was a giant bowl held by 2 frogs. Each apprentice responds differently. Point 1 twitches violently. Another smiles. The youngest cries gently, but won't remember why. You log it all. That you're no longer just a student. You're now part of the system. A note in the sleep song. Historians still argue whether these sleep speeches were ritualistic nonsense or sophisticated proto-neuroscience. Some dismiss them entirely. Others wonder if the Aztecs were conducting brainwave entrainment long before electricity. Either way, your words have weight now. You feel it. When the moon next rises, on time, this time, you feel its light differently. Not just on your skin, inside your chest. Like breath held in the dark, the apprentices dream soundly. You track their stillness with pride. And as you walk back to your quarters, the mystery dog following at your heel, you feel something you hadn't expected. You miss the lower quarters, the bath steam, the fumbling chants, the chaos that you're becoming something new. But the old you still lingers, like a dream half remembered. And dreams, as you now know, never really leave. The day the stars go missing starts like any other. You wake before dawn, sip bitter chocolate thickened with maize flour, and hum a vowel scale as you climb to the high observatory. The sky is clear, the air cool and soft. Everything is ready for routine charting. But when you look up, you pause. No stars. Not one. That the sky isn't cloudy. It's not dawn yet. But the stars, your stars, are simply gone. Like someone swept them clean with a reed broom while no one was watching. At first, you assume it's your eyes. Maybe a lingering dream. Maybe leftover hallucinogens from that night you accidentally sniffed the wrong incense cone. But then Yatzil steps beside you, jaw clenched. You see it too. She says that by the time Tezcatlipoca arrives, half the astronomers are already murmuring theories. Dust storm in the upper sky. Divine prank. New cosmic cycle. Wrong kind of tea. Tezcatlipoca stares into the dark void for a long time, then mutters, "This has happened before, but not in our lifetime." He says it softly, but everyone hears. The absence lasts just over 2 hours. Then, one by one, the stars blink back into view, hesitant, as if peeking around a cosmic curtain in a clear pattern. No announcement, just a slow return, like embarrassed guests re-entering a banquet they accidentally left too early. The astronomers document everything, but you don't sleep that night, because something strange has begun happening in your own dreams. It starts subtle. Your blue house appears, but this time it's upside down. The sky turns red. A spiral glyph burns on the front door, then a new element, a mirror, and in it, not your reflection, but Tezcatlipoca's. Younger, frightened, whispering the same word over and over. A word that sounds like rainfall striking obsidian. You wake sweating. The next night, the blue house again, but shattered into stars. Yatzil's voice echoing from somewhere underground, reciting moon cycles backward. You reach out to the door, but it melts into a pool of ink. On the third night, the dream stops pretending that you're in the high observatory, staring at the empty sky. But now, a shape hovers in the darkness. A geometry, not a being, not a god, a pure, mathematical form. So sharp it hums. You whisper the word from the mirror dream. The shape flickers. You wake, and you're holding something. A fragment of stone, perfectly carved into a miniature spiral. Still warm. You rush to show Tezcatlipoca that he examines it without speaking, then says, "You've entered the final dreaming." You didn't know that was a thing. Apparently, few do. The final dreaming is not a test. It's not a reward. It's a threshold. Only a few ever reach it. The signs are unpredictable: missing stars, recursive dreams, physical artifacts brought back from sleep. Some call it star sickness. Others, perfect attunement. Most just call it the bending. Historians still argue whether this phase was hallucination, epilepsy, or true mystical convergence. No records agree on the symptoms. But all agree, once it starts, you cannot go backward. Your tasks are lifted. You are not expected to work, to log, or even to sleep on schedule. Let it happen, Yatzil says, touching your wrist. You won't be alone in it. The next nights blur. You sleep longer. You wake disoriented. Sometimes you find yourself in the middle of the observatory, barefoot, whispering numbers. Once, you wake among the corn storage, covered in stardust, or maybe just flour. Your dreams become cinematic. You see the past, young Tezcatlipoca, arguing with elders about tracking dreams. Yatzil as a child, trying to draw a comet she saw once in a nap. A girl climbing a tree just to see the moon from higher up. A scholar whispering glyphs into a gourd. All of it, and sometimes, you see futures. You see metal devices hovering in the sky. You see humans living in glass towers above clouds. You see people holding glowing stones and calling them phones. But no one looks up anymore. No one sleeps beneath stars. These glimpses frighten you. But you also feel wonder. You, a humble apprentice, holding the full sweep of time in your dreaming mind. One morning, the mirror appears again. But this time in waking life, that it's not actually a mirror. It's a polished obsidian disc hidden deep within the high quarters. Only the final dreamers are allowed to approach it. You do. And when you look, you see, not your reflection, but all the faces from the basin of memory. layered, stacked, spiraling. And then one last image. The blue house, full and upright, burning with soft white light. And a phrase, not in glyphs, not spoken aloud, but felt in your bones. Sleep is the real sky. You don't ask what it means. You simply let it settle into you. From that moment, your sleep changes again, that and no more frantic visions. No more upside-down houses or melting walls. Only stillness. You rest so deeply, it feels like lifetimes pass with each breath. The astronomers say little. They smile at you more. Tezcatlipoca weeps once, quietly, while watching the stars. Then, one morning, the final sign arrives. The dog, the one who's followed you for weeks, walks to the center of the observatory. Sits, barks once, and the stone pinned at you where cracks, cleanly, down the middle that you've reached the end of the dreaming path. What lies next? No one says, but you sense it. A new role, a new rhythm, and maybe, just maybe, the chance to build your own blue house someday. You leave the observatory on a morning that smells like clay after rain. No ceremony. No procession. Just a quiet farewell from Yatzil, who places a folded wrap into your hands, deep blue with embroidered stars along the edges. For the next cycle, she says, though neither of you knows what that truly means. Tezcatlipoca clasps your shoulders. His eyes are tired, but kind. Rest well, when you can, he murmurs. And listen to the silences. They'll tell you more than we ever could. And just like that, you descend from the high quarters. Your steps are slow. Not from reluctance, but from weight. The kind of weight that comes not from burden, but from density. Experience condensed. Dreams crystallized. You are heavier, but in the way a seed is heavier than a flower, packed with more beginnings than endings. Back in the lower quarters, you find things much the same. The bathhouse still steams. The apprentices still mumble their chants. One boy drops a jar of crushed marigold and blames gravity. You smile, but they look at you differently now. You don't wear your pendant. You don't speak of the final dreaming, but it's in your posture, in the way you pause before stepping through a doorway, in the way your eyes seem to scan not just the sky, but time itself. You spend your days in the blue house. Not the one from your dreams. This one is real. Built of adobe, with a reed roof and a thick wooden door. There are no glyphs on the walls. Just simple shelves, blank pages, a stone bowl for burning herbs, a mat for resting, and people come point one by one. They sit beside you. Sometimes they ask questions about the missing stars, about why their dreams feel louder during eclipses, about whether the gods ever sleep. You rarely answer directly. Instead, you offer tea, a story, a breathing exercise, a quiet look into the fire until something shifts. Sometimes you teach. The same vowel harmonics you once practiced at midnight with a dried chili between your teeth. The same hand positions for shadow casting that you swore you'd never master. The same silly story of the astronomer who mistook a bat for a comet and charted its trajectory for 3 weeks before realizing it slept upside down in the observatory rafters. Sometimes you sleep among them. They form circles on your floor, breathing in sync, wrapped in soft cloth. No one speaks. Just the rhythmic inhale, exhale, like waves, like stars blinking on and off across eons. And still, the dreams come, but now they're gentle, more impression than vision. A warm desert breeze over your skin, a hummingbird hovering near a blooming cactus, a voice, not your own, saying you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Historians still argue whether astronomers like you actually reached altered states of consciousness or simply suffered from chronic sleep deprivation, altitude sickness, or overexposure to incense fumes. They write papers, host debates, dig up temples. But you know the truth lies in neither glyph nor bone. It lies in the moment you wake and feel the stars breathing with you. Sometimes, at night, you walk outside the village and lie flat on the cool ground. You trace the constellations with your fingertip, not to memorize them, not to predict omens, just to feel their shape again. The blue house behind you glows faintly in the moonlight, and occasionally, the dog returns. No collar. No name. He curls up beside you and snores so loudly that fireflies scatter from the grass. You laugh. You're not supposed to, but you do, because that, too, is part of the sleep ritual. not taking the cosmos too seriously. The universe may be infinite, but it's also deeply silly. And that's comforting. Point one night, during the dry season, a comet appears. Bright, sudden, sharp across the dark. The entire village gathers. Children point. Elders nod. Even the apprentices hold their breath. But you smile before it even appears. You felt it coming in your dreams. You knew it would arrive. You didn't know why. And you don't need to. Because you've already seen the mirror. You've already walked the spiral. You've already whispered the glyphs into the quiet sleep of others. Now, you simply be. Sleep when tired. Listen when rested. And always watch the sky, not for answers, but for rhythm. Because in the end, all rituals fade. All temples fall. All scrolls crumble. But sleep is eternal. And so are the stars. Word count, 1089. Wind down, 300 words. So now, as we drift toward the edge of tonight's tale, let your mind settle like dust on warm stone. You've wandered high altars, bathed in moonlight steam, and followed spiral dreams across the roof of the world. You've watched stars vanish and return, listened to sleeping breath like the rise and fall of ancient tides, and understood, deep down, that the universe speaks loudest in silence. The blue house still waits at the edge of memory. A quiet place with no lock on the door. Where sleep is not an escape, but an arrival. Where time folds into itself, and each breath echoes with stories older than words. There's no need to remember it all. Let the facts melt like wax. Let the glyphs dissolve into soft, starlit fog. All that matters now is the slow rhythm of your breath. Inhale, like a moonrise. Exhale, like a falling feather. Feel your weight gently deepen. Your thoughts soften like clay. The world outside the window grows quieter, blurrier, further away, and somewhere in the distance, just barely, you hear the padded footsteps of a dog you may or may not have dreamed into being. Sleep well tonight, fellow astronomer. The stars will keep watch. You've done enough. End of script. Sweet dreams.